Yeah, the main reason why we had you on the show is because you write a lot about China, and I also want to ask you about your experience in China because you were there recently. I think you spent 2 weeks there. So tell us about your experience and what did you learn after being there?
Wow. It's very surreal because I've talked to people about this. I've been on other shows, and the first reaction that a lot of people who have these negative views of China, they say, "Oh, well, you were on a trip that you'd only see good things, was
Like
leading
it's
you around."
like as if it's like a birthright trip or something.
Right. Showing you what they wanted you to see.
I
I
know.
I mean,
It's
to
the same
be
with
honest,
North Korea every time.
I know. And what's so hilarious about it to me is that this trip was mainly a tourist trip. China's kind of expensive to get to, so you can't really get a lot of folks in a delegation from the United States, given the political situation. This delegation was a mix of tourism and a mix of political education. We got to go from Beijing to Xi'an in central China to Dunhuang, more to the west. It's a desert city, and then very small. And then we went to Xinjiang province, its capital, Urumqi, and it was a beautiful experience. I mean, you really get to see just what China has been building, especially for the last 40 years and the reform and opening up. What was just so incredible about it is first of all, how clean Chinese cities are. Is just so much new development that's happening there. So much investment in public transport and the public system. You really do see, as we were moving across the country in these wonderful bullet trains, you see all the development in the rural areas. You see how there is this real effort to squash poverty in the cities, especially. I mean, this is just something that a lot of people probably don't know. In the cities, poverty is considered basically eradicated. There are folks who do travel their way from the countryside who are still impoverished, and there's a lot of issues with trying to get everyone up to speed. It's a huge country, a country that experienced 200 plus years of semi-colonial and feudalism and all of that. So it's hard to get everyone up to speed with that. And that's what China has been doing, though. It's very clear. The environmental protections that you see, we learned about laws in Beijing. They've banned diesel cars. Even in Shanghai, the most, cosmopolitan, you could say, capitalist influence city, they have a law where you can't buy a diesel vehicle without having to buy a permit that also costs the same amount as a car. So it really does incentivize the purchase of electric cars. And one of the things that I'll never forget is, walking through the streets of every city that we went to. And, you hear the birds, you hear people, because the cars are mainly electric for the most part. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, it's incredible. I mean, China is the number one producer of renewable energy, and it is the number one consumer of electric vehicles. And it's very clear when you go. So, of course, China has issues, and, people would talk about it with us. A lot of people, they love the central government. They have so much trust in the central government. The central government makes the ideas and the policies. They're in tune with what's going on with people all over. But the local governments are responsible for implementing policies. And there's a lot of difficulties sometimes in doing that. Unlike the United States, where so many people are kind of afraid to talk about politics. I mean, there's a long history of repression. There's a lot of course, we just talked about our corporate media not telling us the truth about anything. So much misunderstanding, no real grasp of theory, no real grasp of history.
Right.
In China, people talk very openly. You hear about this, like, oh, people can't talk about it against their government. Oh, look what, China did to that doctor that was talking on a private chat. And, well, people in China are so critical. It's just like when I went to Cuba, it was very similar. It's like people in Cuba were very critical of the government, but then they would say, well, we're building something here. So, of course we're we're trying to figure it out. In China, it's a very similar field. There's a lot of criticism of what's going on, but also there's just a different kind of standard, I think, of living and understanding that people expect things to get better. They see things are getting better, and they want things better than that. And that's how I felt there, which is an astounding feeling, being in the United States all of my life, and coming from a working class background and seeing just how a lot of the working class has been so beaten down here that there is no expectation of things getting better. There is no trust in the government. There's no trust in politics. It's just a completely different situation. And it's incredible that so many people buy into the lies about China. When you actually go, you see that this is a country that's basically, a seventh of the world, is leading the world in a different direction. And however imperfect, is charting a course that honestly can't be stopped. So I think people should stop complaining about it, to be honest. People in China are going to chart their course, their pathway of development, their foreign and domestic policy, socialism with Chinese characteristics. That's just happening. You're going to have to understand that China is going to do what China is doing, and we have to focus on what's going on here and what's going on in the rest of the world that the U.S. has some sort of footprint in, and change that.